Welcome to Running Hot, Action Network's motorsports betting podcast. I'm your host, Nick Giffen, predictive analyst here at Action Network. And joining me, as always, Steven Young of RotoGrinders, better known as StevieTPFL. And this week, we're previewing the Straight Talk Wireless 400 at Homestead Miami Speedway here on Running Hot. Last weekend at Las Vegas, Josh Berry claimed his maiden NASCAR Cup Series victory, leading a surprising top three that included Daniel Suarez and Ryan Preece, each of whom were able to take advantage of some late race strategy to find themselves up front with, of course, Josh Berry getting that first career win. Kyle Larson, William Byron, Ryan Blaney, those looked like the three best cars in some order there, in some fashion. But strategy was the name of the game, again, as I mentioned there at Las Vegas. So, Stevie, thoughts on Las Vegas?
I think the first 75% of the race was awesome. We saw tire fall off. We saw a lot of great racing. Some of the late cautions where it was like, hey, is it going to be fuel strategy? Is it not? Those are all questionable calls. But, dude, hats off to Josh Berry. Like, it wasn't just like Josh Berry got some track position and he won a strategy race. Josh Berry was really strong throughout the race, ran in the top 10 a lot throughout the race. Like, I was shocked. Especially after looking at Penske's practice speeds. And it was a little bit different track on Sunday than it was on Saturday with the track being a little bit warmer. But, dude, hats off to Josh Berry. He won that race. He should be super proud. I'm happy for him. I think anybody like Josh Berry who's kind of just done it with racing and not done it with money is just really awesome. And we talked about it before the season even started. We were like, Wood Brothers, this is a huge upgrade for them. No offense to Harrison Burton, but this is a huge upgrade for them. So, yeah, super happy for Josh Berry. It was really cool to see Daniel Suarez. Ryan Preece, Daniel Suarez, I think that was a little bit more strategy and making some right calls, but Josh Berry win is just awesome.
Yeah, I shouldn't say Preece. Suarez even less so. He was running in the top 10 most of the day as well. So, a couple really strong performances there from Josh Berry and Daniel Suarez. Definitely Preece, I think was the real strategy one. But, hey, we talked about it on the season preview show. When I said, who's your driver that you're keeping an eye on, with all these changes and stuff, you said Chase Briscoe. And I was like, don't forget about Josh Berry, right? And, he got his win there. So now we're waiting on Chase Briscoe to get his win and preview this race at Homestead. We might hear Chase Briscoe's name. So, yeah, I thought it was a great race for, like you said, for most of it. Ryan Blaney, to me, had the best car. I think, Kyle Larson ran out the front the most, but I think Ryan Blaney had the best car. You looked at his practice times, and he was running 0.2 of a second faster than anybody from like laps 10 to 18 when he ended up, having that tire go down and crashing in practice. And I saw that, and I was like, I got to get Blaney somehow, some way. And fortunately, he lengthened to 14-1 before the green flag. It took him at 14-1, and well, it didn't work out, but feel very good about that analysis. But this week, we are on to another 1.5 mile track. That is Homestead Miami Speedway. Bit of a different 1.5 miles from Las Vegas. Homestead is what we call a true oval, meaning there's two 180-degree turns at each end with just two straightaways. There's no dog leg. There's no tri-oval. It's just a straight, oval, essentially, with two straight legs in between the 180 turns. Homestead pretty steeply banked. It has the variable banking as well. So higher banked at the top than it is at the bottom of the track or the inside of the track. And of course, Homestead, very old track surface. We get a lot of tire wear. Stevie, talk about racing at Homestead.
Yeah, one of my favorite racetracks, and it always has been. I'm still like bitter and sad that like the championship is not run at Homestead because I just think this racetrack is the perfect combination of a racer's racetrack. I mean, if you look at the stats on who's done well here for the last 10, 15, 20 years, it's the cream of the crop. It's drivers that do well on this type of racetrack. I mean, like you mentioned, it's a steep track, so we get multiple grooves, which is really good for racers' racetracks. It's a high tire wear racetrack because it's right outside of Miami, Florida, and the sun beats down on it all year, so the tire wear is phenomenal. And it's a fast racetrack, so you have to be able to carry speed. So, I mean, it's the cream of the crop type of racetrack. It's one of my favorites. Like I said, it's a racer's racetrack, and I think that it's just going to be an incredible race like it typically is here at Homestead, and we're going to see the drivers that, do well here, move up and do well, and we're going to see the drivers that struggle here struggle. I mean, I think that it's a pretty straightforward racetrack.
Yeah, I agree with you. Homestead's maybe my favorite racetrack in the Cup Series, after Pocono, of course. Yeah, I love racing at Homestead. You can run anywhere on the track. You can run all the way at the bottom, you can run all the way at the top, and you can run everywhere in between and make speed. So it's wherever your car, wherever your driving style works, how your setup is working and where you are in your tire life. It'll cause you to have to move around too. So like you said, it really is a driver's track because the driver gets to make all those decisions on where they run on the track, at when, and at what point in the tire life. So very, very fun racetrack. Not really any directly comparable tracks. There's no other track on the circuit like Homestead, but certainly we have some other ones that we can kind of use to help us inform our decision making at Homestead, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think your best comp is Homestead. We run it one time a year, and like you said, there's not really a great comp. I mean, we'll throw Darlington in the mix. Darlington's a steep track. It's a little bit shorter track. It's not as fast of a racetrack as Homestead is, but it's a high tire wear track with a lot of steep banking. A lot of the tire setup that you run at Homestead is the same as Darlington. I think I'll use a little bit of Las Vegas data from last weekend as well, because, I mean, it's a steep track. We talked about tire wear. You're getting a second and a half on a long run at Vegas, and I feel like that is putting it in that higher tire wear range. Homestead, Darlington, you get 2 to 3 seconds. Like if you pit at lap 30 on these tires, you're going to see a huge upgrade. Yeah, I mean, a little bit of Darlington. I say a little bit, but Darlington I think is the best comp. Vegas, and I've had some really good success kind of throwing Charlotte into the mix too, because we're only running the Coke 600 there now, and we're not running the fall race. I mean, that's a long race, and Charlotte is, with this 1.5 with the next gen car, has become a really good race, and so I've been throwing a little bit of Charlotte data in my Homestead data here lately.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. You could pull in a little bit of Kansas. We haven't run at Kansas yet, but definitely is getting towards some fall off, kind of steepish as well. Not like super steep or anything, but more just the speed and the tire fall off there with Kansas. But I agree with you. I mean, Darlington's the best one. You can also look a little bit just at like all the steep tracks if you want to throw in Dover and Bristol a little bit, just because of the driving style of driving a steep track. You don't need to be on the brakes as much at a steeper track because the banking kind of carries you around the turn a little bit as well. But just those are kind of like some very ancillary tracks to use as comparables. But you're right, the best comparison for Homestead is Homestead. And this is the part where we always talk about like intangibles. One, I wouldn't say intangible for me, but one question for me, knowing we just came from Vegas and we can use some Vegas data, JGR was not exactly the fastest at Las Vegas. Now, their sister team or their affiliate team, 2311, was very good. Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace both ran really well all day. But JGR themselves, questionable. Ty Gibbs was one of the slowest cars. Chase Briscoe struggled at a track that we thought might be good for him now that he was with JGR. Denny Hamlin was just kind of in the mid-teens all day until he got some late track position, but didn't really do anything with it. And Seabell was up and down. He kind of ran towards the front at times, kind of drifted towards the back at times. What were your thoughts on JGR and how that might carry over here to Homestead?
Super concerned about Ty Gibbs. The speed now is really concerning because, I mean, it is a new crew chief and there's been a lot of changes on that team. But man, if anybody's not concerned, they're a little crazy in my opinion because I mean the speed is just not there. Denny was really good after about like 25 laps, which really kind of is his MO on those like high tire wear tracks. He just kind of beats you on the long run. So I'm not too concerned about Denny. Bell, I mean, he worked his way all the way up inside the top 5 and then had the speeding penalty and we never saw him again. So that was a little bit concerning. But yeah, Chase Briscoe, the tire issue, how much did that affect the car, not getting the tire tight and stuff? So concerned? Yes, very concerned, because it is our best comp going into this race. We haven't run a February, March Homestead race since 2021, pre-next gen. When you come here in October, it's a lot warmer. So, I mean, it's going to be 10 to 15 degrees difference. And I don't know, I'm a little concerned about JGR. I'm not pumping the brakes on anybody besides Ty Gibbs right now. There's no Ty Gibbs bet that I would bet right now, but the other three, I think it was a lot of product of race last week than it was anything else. And Denny, Denny, if you watch his lap times, he was right there after about 25 laps, and that's just Denny Hamlin, and he never practices or qualifies well. That's just who he is.
Yeah, exactly. He's a guy that always shows up, late race, late in a run, like you said. But he just didn't quite get the track position. He was 14th at best for most of the day until, some strategy under caution late put him inside the top 6. And then he had a good restart, got into the top 5, top 4. But yeah, I was a little concerned by JGR as a whole, but definitely Ty Gibbs. Something's wrong there. A lot of it we could chalk up to bad luck last year, towards the end of last year, super speedways to start the year this year. But at a road course, COTA, where he's usually really good, he struggled. And now Las Vegas struggled. Phoenix struggled. So, Ty Gibbs, absolutely, we have to be worried about him and what's going on with that car, what's going on with that team. Will some changes be made there? But I agree with you. I think it's pretty tough to bet on Ty Gibbs right now, especially here at Homestead. Any other final thoughts on Homestead before we get to the bets?
Well, to your point really quick on the JGR thing, the best average running position for any of the JGR cars last weekend at Vegas was Christopher Bell at 18th best. I mean, that is not what you want to see at all. So, I think the racing at Homestead is just going to be great. I think we kind of covered everything as far as what to look for. I mean, tire-wise, we're running the same tire they ran left side and right side last year. So it's the same left side tire they ran last weekend at Las Vegas as well. So again, I think you really kind of want to weigh Vegas a little bit more than you usually do, with this being a early March or mid-March race at Homestead for the first time since 2021, and really kind of pay attention to what you saw last weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, is weigh Vegas a little more for your Homestead analysis than you used to. It was 2021, like you said, when we last ran Homestead earlier in the year. William Byron won that race. That was the last season in the Gen 6 car before we moved to the Gen 7 car. Tyler Reddick was second. Martin Truex Jr. Was third. That is now, of course, Chase Briscoe's car. And Kyle Larson fourth. Kevin Harvick rounded out the top 5. Michael McDowell was sixth in that race. So just something to keep in mind there. But it is time to dive into the bets. We're going to go stage by stage. It's just going to be Stevie giving the picks this week. I'm just going to throw him the pitch and he'll knock him out, so to speak, because, well, of course, it's tournament time for basketball. So that's where my focus has been this week. So Stevie will give a pick in stage 1. He'll give a pick in stage 2, and he'll lead us into victory lane for the victory lane pick, where I will be tailing his best bet. So it's time to throw the green flag on the Straight Talk Wireless 400 and fire off for stage 1. First pick, Stevie, first stage. What do you got for us?
I got the Florida Gators plus 350 to win. Oh, just kidding. I am a Gator, so I am very, very excited for March Madness this year, just for them to probably disappoint us. But yeah, I'm going to go to a car that we just said we were a little concerned, like a whole organization. I'm going to Chase Briscoe, top 10, plus 110 here. I think you could wait on this if you really wanted to and see if he struggles in qualifying and potentially get a better number than this. I bet it early in the week at plus 130. I mean, we're saying early in the week. It's Wednesday. I got it at plus 130 yesterday. I'm still okay with betting it at plus 110. I'm okay with waiting. This is the racetrack type that Chase Briscoe really excels at. We talked about it at Las Vegas last week. How much did that tire really affect them? I think it was a huge thing. Obviously, it could have done a lot of damage to the inside of the car, too. We look at how good he was at Darlington and Homestead last year in sub-equipment compared to what he's in now. Just absolutely love this racetrack type for him. I mean, we watched him absolutely be the car at home or at Darlington too, with a team that was going out of business. He had two top fives last year in 3 races at Darlington and Homestead. I look at all the data. It really points to him. You look how good Truex was here throughout his career, and you're just like, I mean, this is another perfect opportunity. We talked about it last week. We really liked Briscoe on that type of racetrack last week. I'm going back to the well here on Chase Briscoe. I'm going to bet his top 10 early in the week and just hope that like they show up with way different like setups or something than what they ran at Vegas, because I mean, if you're JGR, you're going back to the shop on Monday and you're like, hey, we need to bring something completely different to Homestead. So I like Chase Briscoe. I really like this racetrack type for him. I really like the equipment, even though it was a little scary last weekend. So my stage 1 pick is Chase Briscoe top 10.
Yeah, Briscoe's an interesting one because of, the struggles we saw last week. He did open as long as 50-1. I think he's only like 33-1 as the longest right now.
Yeah.
Thereabouts. So like you said, you got it 130 for a top 10. It's now plus 110. So he's definitely taking on some money. People are still backing Chase Briscoe here. You mentioned the tire issue at Las Vegas. The only other thing I'll chime in is his practice times were not good at Las Vegas. And I know we can't always just say practice will translate the rate speed or not, but I was definitely concerned with Chase Briscoe just through the whole Vegas process. But you can't deny that Homestead, that Darlington, this is his track type, these steep tracks with the fall off, these driver-centric tracks. And I just mentioned that number 19 car the last time we were here in a spring race in 2021 finished inside the top 3. So maybe a good omen there for Chase Briscoe. So Chase Briscoe, top 10 plus 110 is Stevie's stage 1 pick. We're going to throw the green and white checkers on stage 1, fuel up, get some tires, especially here at Homestead, and fire up for stage 2. Second stage, Stevie, I can see it on the outline. I'm very glad you have this driver in the outline. What do you have here for stage 2?
So this is my model's favorite bet this week, early in the week, and it's AJ Allmendinger for a top 10 at plus 250. I was a little surprised by it, when I was inputting data and I was looking at it, I was like, wow. And then I looked at the data and I was like, okay, we just saw him at Las Vegas run inside the top 10 most of the day. He had a really good car. Practice, he had good speed. I mean, he was able to run some fastest laps throughout the race. His 8th place finish last weekend was not a fluke. He ran really well.
Really well all day. Yeah.
All day. And then you go and you look at how well he runs at Homestead. He's run all 3 races here with the next-gen car. He has a 5.3 average finish with 2 top 5s. He's finished inside the top 10 in all 3. The only driver to finish inside the top 10 in all 3 next-gen races at Homestead. And you're like, okay, do I bet his outright? Do I bet his top 5? But then you get his top 10 at plus 250, and you're like, man, I feel really good about this. So AJ really excels on these high tire wear racetracks. He kind of excels at these steep tracks, which is kind of opposite of what you would expect for a road course racer. You'd expect him to really kind of excel on those short, flat type of racetracks. But my model loves this. I looked through the data. I love it now. One of my favorite bets. I almost made this Victory Lane, but I mean, I'm sticking to my guns on Victory Lane this week. So I love this AJ top 10 bet. The data loves this AJ top 10 bet. And it sounds like you're kind of smiling and you're liking this one as well.
Yeah. Oh, no, I love it. I mean, this dude runs well, and these top 10s that he's been getting haven't been flukes. I was watching on Tubi the 2022 Homestead race, last night before I went to bed. He was running up there with Ross Chastain in the top 3. They were swapping second and third, back and forth behind Kyle Larson. And he ended up finishing third behind Ross Chastain. So he clearly had the speed to keep up with another top 2 or 3 driver. So it wasn't like he just got there on strategy. If we look at Allmendinger's history at Homestead, 8th in 2016 with JTG Doherty Racing, 5th in 2010 with Richard Petty Motorsports, and 11th even all the way back in 2008 with Gillette Evernham Motorsports, right? So this guy can just finish in the top 10 at this track, whether it was, older Homestead with, less tire wear when it was still relatively newly paved and Old Homestead as well. This is just a good track type for him. You mentioned just the steep track part. He's done well at Bristol, let's say, in the Xfinity Series. He finished 13th at Darlington the last time he raced Cup Series at Darlington. So, yeah, steep tracks are pretty solid for AJ Allmendinger, and he's coming off a fantastic race at Las Vegas where, I think at worst he was running 15th at any point in that race, and most of the race he was running a lot better. You mentioned the JGR cars, average running position was a best of 18th. Allmendinger was way ahead of that. So yeah, you got to like AJ Allmendinger this weekend. So I love that top 10 bet. AJ Allmendinger plus 250. So I was going to tail Victory Lane. I'm tailing this one too. I'm in. I'm in on AJ Allmendinger top 10 plus 250. This is reminding me of one other driver I wanted to mention. So here's my analysis for the week that I really get to give. It's not a pick or anything, but I've been so basketball focused. But I do want to talk about Austin Dillon and RCR. This is a good track for RCR. Austin Dillon was almost able to join AJ Allmendinger as the top 10 sweeper in the next gen car. He has a 4th and a 10th at Homestead, although last year he finished 25th, but this has been a good track for Austin Dillon. It's been a good track for RCR. When Tyler Reddick was in this car, he was running near the front, almost grabbing wins here. Now, of course, that's Tyler Reddick, but Kyle Busch always runs here as well. So, I think this is going to be potentially a good omen for RCR, but we also know Colleague has some RCR ties, and that is also partially probably why AJ Allmendinger does so well here as well. So some drivers to keep an eye on might be those that have ties to Richard Childress Racing, Ty Dillon as well in that Colleague equipment, and of course Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon. So any extra thoughts on that?
Austin Dillon is 6-1 on DraftKings, plus 600 for a top 10. So I don't think that's crazy at all. He has finished inside the top 10 in 2 of the 3 next gen races here. So I mean, if he has any type of speed in practice qualifying, you're not getting that at 6-1. So I think if you're going to bet the top 10, I just bet it because I think you make a lot of sense. They had speed at times last week before all the issues. I mean, Kyle was running inside the top 10 until he had all the issues. So again, like that's what we were looking for. We're looking at who had some speed last weekend, who's good at Homestead, and kind of mixing the two.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that, but both RCR cars looked pretty good at Vegas. Definitely Kyle Busch running inside the top 10, near the top 5 for a lot of that. And Austin Dillon was hovering just outside the top 10, maybe in that top 15 for a lot of the early portion of the Vegas race. So potentially some comparable track speed there as well for Richard Childress Racing and their, not teammates, but somewhat aligned cars there. So that's stage 2. We're going to drive through stage 3 and all the way into Victory Lane pick. As I said, I'm going to be tailing Stevie 100% on Victory Lane. So Stevie, give us Homestead Victory Lane pick.
Yeah, I'm going to go to an outright. We haven't actually, I don't know if we've talked much outrights since Daytona and Atlanta, but I'm going to go to one that I don't typically bet, and it's Kyle Larson plus 450. You can get this on FanDuel. It's already under 400 on some books, so if you want this at plus 450, you got to get it at FanDuel. Listen, before the week even started, last week I said I'm betting Kyle Larson outright. And I just the data, how much speed he had at Vegas. This guy, he's by far the fastest car at Homestead. He just runs, they call it the Larson line. It's not even remotely replicable how he runs this racetrack. He, over the 3 races with the next gen car, his finishes are all over the place. He does have 1 win, but he's averaging 52.7 fastest laps in those 3 races. The next closest person is Denny Hamlin at 22 per race, and a lot of that came 1 race. Mm-hmm. Kyle Larson is by far, not even remotely close, the best car at Homestead. I don't like betting odds this low, but when you have a guy that just had a ton of speed and an organization, Hendrick Motorsports had so much speed last weekend. Byron had speed. Larson had speed. Bowman had speed. Chase Elliott had speed until he made a bonehead mistake. They were so fast, and then you're like, all right, we're going to Homestead. It's not going to be as hot. Kyle Larson's going to dominate this race. I'm betting him. Listen, I don't like doing this. I'm all in. I'm not going to bet any of their outrights. unless something happens with like Blaney or Reddick or Bell, where they're like 10 to 12, 13, 14 to 1, like you got with Blaney last week, where he wrecked in practice and he had an incredible car and they fixed that car. So Larson is by far the best car at Homestead. I'm betting it. I love the fact that it's not like 3 to 1, but I wish it was like 6 to 1. But yeah, I'm betting Larson to win this race.
And you mentioned the fastest laps, but Kyle Larson's also led the most laps in 2 of the 3 Homestead races in the next gen era. Yeah. You mentioned the finishes haven't been quite there. He did have the win, but that second Homestead race in the next gen era in 2023, he led 96 laps. He only ran 214 laps because he's trying to get on pit road, got in there way hot, did touch Ryan Blaney in the back a little bit, kind of slammed into Ryan Blaney and then tried to avoid him, went right into the barrels and just exploded sand everywhere. We're at Homestead, we're in Miami, we're on the beach, and Kyle Larson figured he had to throw some sand around, but it was absolutely a dominant car in that race. So 2 out of the 3 races. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but what are your thoughts of just betting the 3-leg parlay of him winning all 3 races this weekend?
That'd be fun. A nice funsy bet. He's doing all 3, the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Cup Series. So
I'm loading it into the app just to see what kind of number we get real quick.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what you get for
3-bet parlay is plus 1,400.
Larson parlay is 14 to 1. Shop that around if you can.
I'm going to do a little funsy bet on it. Why not?
There you go. Let's have some fun this
And
weekend.
He's getting extra track time.
Oh yeah.
Good luck beating him in the trucks and the Xfinity Series. Like, I'm sorry to those guys. Like, if you're Kyle Larson, you only do this because you want to win the trip. You want to sweep the weekend. That's the only reason you're doing it.
Absolutely. So, Kyle Larson victory lane pick, maybe even a Kyle Larson sweep the weekend funsy bet. So I will be tailing definitely victory lane. I may even throw a sprinkle in on a Kyle Larson Triple Crown parlay. Maybe parlay Kyle Larson with Florida, Stevie. Since you're all in on Kyle Larson, we're in Homestead, Miami. Florida is your school for the NCAA championship. So yeah, just another little funsy bet there. But that is going to do it for us. Thank you for listening to the Straight Talk Wireless 400 episode of Running Hot, Action Network's Motorsports Betting Podcast. If you'd like to tail some of the bets we discussed today, look for the quick slip link in the podcast and video description, or go to actionnetwork.com/bet now. We'll be back next week to talk bets for the Cookout 400. Delicious at Martinsville Speedway. On behalf of my co-host, Stephen Young, thanks again for listening. We'll see you back here next week on Running Hot from Action Network.